There's no way not to talk about God of War, and when we talk about this game, we need to start with the first in the saga in chronological order. In God of War Ascension, 6 months after Kratos stands before the bodies of his wife and daughter, he becomes the ghost of Sparta, and this is because the oracle placed a curse on him. And Kratos also reneged on his great bond with Ares, the god of war. With his hands covered in blood, Kratos was tricked by Ares into killing the only people he loved. So, as a promise of revenge, Kratos broke the blood oath, responsible for linking him to Ares, which is precisely there our story begins. Hey guys, I'm Curioso Kaiser directly from Sparta, and welcome to another video on the channel. Leave your like, subscribe below, and activate the bell so you don't miss any of the channel's content. Without further ado, let's do it. With the beginning of this story, after Kratos reneges, Ares did not accept Kratos' betrayal and sent the Furies after him. In original mythology, the Furies are nothing more than 3 sisters who were born when the Titan Kronos castrated their father Uranus, thus causing them to be born from the blood that came out of this castration. After that, they become servants of Hades and consequently not of Ares. In the original mythology, we know that it was from Hades, the Great One, god of the underworld. Each of them brought their own justice against all men. First we have Alecto, the Queen of the Furies. She was responsible for giving severe punishment to those who committed their crimes through anger and all her wrath. In second, we have Shrew, the sister of envy, who punished all those who were unfaithful and also those who envied. And finally, we have Tisiphone, the sister of revenge, who punished all those who committed murder. As we know, in this universe, they were not just born because of what the Titan Kronos did to his father Uranus. The sisters were also born, precisely from the hatred spread by the primordial wars. Primordial, those beings who gave all origin to the gods and titans. Now speaking of the first to be punished by the Furies, it was none other than Centimanes, who after the Great War of the gods and titans, betrayed Zeus. The Furies captured him, and instead of killing him, they preferred to torture him, building a prison on his gigantic body, just to be able to keep all those who would be punished in the future. For them, if they ended up taking his life, it would be a very simple punishment for the sin he had committed. The game starts with Kratos in his home in Sparta, and it seems confusing at first glance, when suddenly a crazy blue man appears, scaring Kratos. He comes to Kratos and says that the ghost of Sparta was in a great illusion, that is, that the whole place was in Kratos' head. Then, the blue man gives Kratos' wife's ring and necklace to him, and asks him to maintain concentration. When suddenly the scenario changes abruptly, guys, showing that, in fact, Kratos was not in his house. The man says that illusion was being caused by the Fury sisters, who were precisely doing all that in his head, because Kratos broke his bond with Ares. And they would continue doing that until Kratos reached the height of madness, unable to differentiate between reality and illusion itself. The only important tip that this man gives to Kratos, after having revealed all this to him, is that he go to Delphi and find the Oracle Aletheia. This strange blue man's name is Orcos, guys, which will be mentioned later in this video, so stay there because many important things are yet to come. The confusion in Kratos' head wasn't letting him know what really happened in his life after renegade Ares. Of course, guys, he knew that his wife and daughter were no longer alive, but he didn't know how. The only thing he was sure of was that Ares was to blame for all this happening. So, with the intention of discovering the truth behind his link with the god of war, Kratos of Sparta, he begins his journey to Delphi. After an intense and long journey, he finally arrives at his destination. But when he arrives, he finds the entrance locked with complex and gigantic mechanisms in the shape of snakes. After a long time, Kratos finally manages to activate all the mechanisms, and thus enter the place. Inside, he solves some puzzles and reaches the guardians of this temple, who are nothing more than the Siamese brothers, Castor and Pollux. For those who don't know, guys, the brothers Castor and Pollux, in original mythology, were twin brothers, venerated as gods, for bringing favorable winds to all who made a sacrifice to them, and also for helping sailors in distress. Unlike mythology, in the game, they were Siamese. Castor, who was the larger of the two, considered himself a prophet and lived sending slaves to work for him. He was very cruel. But Pollux, who stood in the middle of Castor's body, was a sorcerer with many skills. he could teleport, fly, and also do magic. I can imagine how difficult it must have been, since he didn't have his own body, he had to do all this next to his brother Castor. After Kratos did all that, they still tried to stop him from seeing Oracle, but Kratos, you know what he's like, right? A man with a capital H, thick-skinned, do you really think he would obey anyone's orders? Hey guys, wait a minute. Then, a historic battle begins after the Siamese brothers attack Kratos. Desperate to stop Kratos, the brothers end up destroying a large part of the temple, and as a result, the oracle that he was missing his eyes, out of curiosity, he ends up falling into the abyss. Full of hate, Kratos ends up separating the brothers, guys, but if you're thinking it was anything else, you're wrong. Kratos separated them with his own hands and killed them afterwards. Upon killing them, Kratos takes the Ouroboros amulet. This amulet allows whoever uses it to make people or objects go to the future or return to the past for a certain period of time. For example, with this amulet, Kratos can rebuild bridges and buildings that were destroyed. This way he manages to get to Oracle, who was almost dying. Kratos even tries to use the amulet, but Aletheia tells him that it would have no effect on her, so Ocarilo reveals it to Kratos, who stops. If he manages to get rid of his bond with Ares, it would be by killing the Furies. Kratos asks how he could do that, since we know they would use illusions to stop him. Thus, she advises Kratos saying that, to do so, he would have to go after the Eyes of Truth, which is the only item in the world capable of, to see through the illusions. According to what she said, the eyes would be on the statue of Apollo on the island of Delos. Only with that would Kratos be able to face the Furies and discover the whole truth. After all that, she dies. Kratos returns to Sparta and hitches a ride on a ship that would pass by the island. But when he enters the ship, he is approached by Orcos, who explains his origins to him. To complete Ares and Furies' plan to take Olympus, they would need a warrior, but not just any warrior, but rather the perfect warrior. Then, Ares had relations with Alecto, who gave life to Orcos, a being half god and half fury. However, Orcos was not what Ares was waiting, because Orcos was born too weak. Then, he was abandoned by the god of war. The Furies even took pity on the boy. Orcos then tells Kratos why he decided to help him, because he found the fate that his relatives reserved for him to be unfair. As Ares was not satisfied with Orcos, he looked for another man to be the great warrior, and ended up finding Kratos. 2. Test your servant and find out if he really was worthy. Ares then gave 3 tasks. Kratos travels to the cursed island of Delos, where the statue of Apollo had much of it destroyed. He then climbs the statue little by little, but on the way he faces several enemies, managing to restore parts of the statue with that Ouroboros amulet. Remember, he reaches a certain part of the statue, when he suddenly realizes that he was in an illusion. A Spartan soldier approaches Kratos, and when he least expects it, an entire troop arrives to try to stop Kratos. Along with the troops was Shrew. Kratos, without many options, faces the illusion and beats Shrew. As a result, guys, Kratos rips off Shrew's arm. After he does this, he is attacked by a celestial bird, which throws Kratos out of that illusion. This bird was Deimos, an invocation of Tisiphone. Then, Kratos fights the 2 Furies, throwing Shrew away from the statue and, hypothetically speaking, killing Tisiphone. After all this, Orcos ends up saving Kratos with his Stone of Jura, which allows him to be in 2 places at the same time, through an illusion. He gives the stone to Kratos and tells him that he must get to the top of the statue, where the Eyes of Truth are. Who knew, guys? Along the way, Kratos finds the body of Archimedes. I don't know if you know, but Archimedes was a great mathematician, physicist, inventor, and also an astronomer in real life. But in the game, guys, he was a great architect who helped build the statue of Apollo and all those mechanisms that were in it. Unfortunately, the work he did was so heavy that he ended up dying due to the madness of his mind. Kratos finally then restores the entire statue of Apollo, and enters the temple where the eyes were. Orcos finally appears and ends up telling him about the story of the Eyes of Truth. After hearing the whole story, did Kratos catch his eye on the truth? But no, guys, Orcos leaves and Kratos still has to resolve various puzzles. And after a long time, after he completes the puzzles, oh yes, he finally manages to catch the Eye of the Truth. After managing to catch the Eyes of Truth, the Fury sisters attack Kratos, and after a long fight, he finally kills the sisters. Kratos then returns to his home in Sparta, and Orcos appears and congratulates Kratos on his victory. However, even before they were killed, They made Orcos guardian of Kratos' oath again, so for a good understanding. Kratos and Ares' bond still existed. But Orcos says that for him, if he really wanted to get rid of the link with Ares, it was to kill him. Therefore, Kratos kills Orcos, and it is the only moment in which we see that Kratos felt compassion for someone. Then, finally, with the bond between Kratos and Ares broken, Kratos regains his memory, remembering all the evil he caused, and that he was responsible for taking the lives of his own family. These memories would make a storm in Kratos' mind, causing him to seek help from the gods of Olympus so that everyone, their sins would be forgiven. And so our story of God of War Ascension ends. Thank you very much, guys, to everyone who stayed until the end of the video. A big hug from Curioso Kaiser and see you in the next video.